Welcome to a new episode of the Startup Show. Today, I have the big pleasure of visiting the headquarters, of Le Bijou here in Zurich. Welcome to the show, to the co-founders. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Welcome back to the Startup Show. Today, I have the big pleasure. I think it's the first entrepreneur couple that I am hosting here on the Startup Show, which is really great. Maybe just, whoever starts first, give us a little bit of background who you guys are.
Well, I'm Madeleine. I love what I do, and whenever I have time besides the business, I like to do some yoga, and I love to drink matcha tea. I like to travel. Thanks to my job, I have the opportunity to do so very often, to check out other hotels and other brands, and that's...
Very nice. Tell us a little bit about maybe of your professional career before you started your own company. I think you started 6-7 years ago. So how was that beforehand? What made you decide to become an entrepreneur?
I think I was an entrepreneur in my heart since I can think, I guess. The first entrepreneurial interaction I had when I was 8, when I sold a mobile phone, a Nokia phone, to one of my colleagues with a little contract, and afterwards they came back to our house and my mother had to give back the money to my peer because he wasn't actually allowed to buy it. So that's my first entrepreneur story, I could say. And then after high school, I went to study in Paris. Yeah. And for me, that's where it started. I traveled back and forth, was already with this wonderful guy here. And so we had to be creative on how to use our existing apartment to,
But don't give the idea away. We'll wait with the idea, but give a little bit to your boyfriend also to speak.
No, I actually can't talk, but we're more or less the same. I was actually never employed my whole life. I started as an entrepreneur when I was 17 and went to school on the side. So I select the schools wisely, but I always thought it's very important that you can spend a lot of time with your idea and with your company. It's what brings you forward. It's a lot of work. You might have a good idea, but in the end, it's a lot of work. So there's not so much you can do on the side if you're an entrepreneur. And since I'm doing this almost all my life, this is my main background.
Right.
Yeah.
Which makes you probably credible, especially if you look to the Silicon Valley. Everyone started at least 20 companies already. Yes. So, but tell us maybe a little bit, one or two of your projects from the past.
Well, I used to work in the film and media business. We had a general contractor producing content, videos. We were consulting companies, for their communication projects, especially with the focus on videos and audiovisual communication. And we had a film technical supplier. We were producing feature films, co-producing mainly. We produced 14 different films before. And, it was always very interesting to do a lot of different projects. But there's always a lot of commitment from my side when I want to do something, right? When Le Bijou came, when it actually started, the idea was we'll get to that a little bit later, as you told me. But it was developing kind of on the side, and it was a very interesting idea. So it's absorbing a lot of attention, and then you kind of follow that route. That's
so let's not hold back the audience with the idea. So let's give us a little bit of an understanding what Le Bijou is all about.
Le Bijou is a lifestyle, basically. So what we do to the product, to explain the product, is that we create hotel apartments, meaning we turn city center apartments at top locations into hotel suites. And with that, we had developed a technology, a software, that allows you to get almost anything you wish for within this apartment. So it's like a luxurious variation of AirBnB, you could call it. And with the touch on the iPad, you can really hold it up. Here we go. You can have everything. You can order a private chef. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
So you can really order everything like in a hotel, but we don't have this infrastructure of a hotel. Yeah. Because we pick those really cool apartments, we make them look really nice. We have our own design team takes care of that as well. It's a niche product. It's really something that doesn't exist like that on the market.
So just give me a little bit a sense so I understand. So you try to find top locations and then you buy these apartments and renovate them, or how does that work?
So usually we don't buy, and this is actually really part of my job to find the places. So I'm part of the acquisition team. I find the apartments, I build up the relationship with the property management and so on. And then of course sign the contract to rent the apartments. And we rent them on a long-term basis, so up to 20 years. And then we start the building process, and in the end, put in the app, and then the guests can come and enjoy.
Mm-hmm. So basically, like if I come, let's say, to Zurich as a tourist, I can just go to your app, and then I'll find like all the locations where you can stay.
And you find us on all the booking platforms like Booking.com, Expedia, Hotel.de, also on AirBnB. And then you can book the place, you pay, you receive your code to check in automatically without any help, without us. And then you can use the app, which is in the apartment, to order all these services and help you navigate in the city you might not know.
Right. I'm giving you a very nice segue because you have a very prominent and very VIP guest that is going to visit around the world, all your places. So maybe you can tell me a little bit like the feedback that you got from the famous Apple founder Woz.
Actually, it started 2014 when he came actually as our guest. And
so just to understand, one morning he just, you saw a booking from Stevie Wozniak, or how did that go?
No. We actually knew that he was coming to Zurich. So our third partner, Renato Steiner, he's not here today. He's actually always a bit in the background. He's responsible for all the technology. He's an IT genius, as John Sculley called him. So he knew that he was coming, and then we contacted the management, and they loved our place, and then he was our guest.
Right. Okay, good. And then how did that relationship evolve?
Well, he obviously liked it quite a lot, that he sent us his testimonial all day. So we opened the mailbox, and he writes us. The video is online. You can actually check it out on our website. From that moment, we actually started to communicate more and more with him, and got support, and that's how it goes. The next Apple VIP came, John Sculley.
Okay.
And that's
how we got into the Silicon Valley a little bit.
That's really impressive. So you have a very interesting financing structure of your business. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit of like what were your thoughts when you went down that path, and how it actually works.
Well, the idea was we actually issued a bond. It's the second bond that we issued in 2016 now. And the idea behind it is that it's very difficult to get financing from banks. It's very difficult, especially in Switzerland, to find good venture capitalists that are specialized in our field. Also internationally, not that easy. And in the beginning, it's usually like this, that you have to give a lot away, that you give a certain stake of equity away to the investor. And we found out that in Switzerland particularly, there is a lot of interest in high yield, high interest products. So we started one, and turns out there is a lot of demand for it, right? So we were, as a young company, already issuing a bond, which is a bit untypical, I would say. The lawyers were a bit surprised what we're doing, and more surprised that it actually worked so well. The reason behind this is we're actually cutting off like the middleman. There is no bank in between. We are working directly with the beneficiary, the investor in this case, and he invests money into our bond. He gets a fixed interest over 5 years. We pay it out every quarter to have like certain stability. And the whole idea behind this is to create a community, a network around our company. Also helps us in the marketing at the end, and it connects new people, it creates new ideas, and it's a wonderful thing. We actually issued a bond in a very nice design as well. Can probably show that later, but
so it gives a nice value in the end.
For sure. I mean, like, when you look at startups, it's definitely about the network community they can build around it, and I think it's a genius way to do that. I've never heard it personally. I think it's great.
That's exactly the idea, that you have like people that want the success of the company, that recommend it, that believe in the vision behind the company.
And to put the money where their mouth is.
Exactly, yeah. and we have, I would say we have like small or medium-sized investors. They help us a lot. It's new stuff coming along every day, basically, and it's very exciting. We have them from all sorts of industries, and they're business people, private people, and it's very interesting, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about numbers? People with bonds, they want to hear like return on investment, how many bonds I issued, and give me maybe some kind of numbers so we understand.
Oh, this is the second bond we issued. So the first bond we issued was in summer last year, and it was like a test bond to see if this vehicle to finance our company actually works. And it did. And this was over 1 million was 9.125% interest per year over 4 years. And now, so we managed to fulfill that within a month. So now we're going bigger. So we went for the 12 millions. It was issued 1st of December. Last year, and it's going to be, deadline is the 22nd of March this year. So we have a bit of work to do, a bit to go for. So this one is 12 million and it pays 7.125% per year over 5 years, as he just mentioned before. And numbers, maybe what is interesting to know, last year we made 2.5 million, right? Is that
2.7.
Sorry, 2.7. And I think it's going this way for us.
Right. To round up the show, I would like to get a little bit of your expertise in the real estate market. Digital transformation, disruptive, everyone talks about these buzzwords. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about what are we going to see, let's say in the next 5 to 10 years in the real estate market? Is everyone going to share their apartments, or how do you see it?
Well, definitely part of the shared economy.
It's actually difficult to say. People ask us a lot about what we think about Airbnb and so on. We are usually at top locations, so it's always like commercial use of the building. There is a lot of voices against Airbnb, which we cannot really understand, because in some areas, like in the mountains, you're forced to rent it out to tourists, and in cities where you have like rather strong hotel industry, they want to keep the competition out, basically. I think it's a great thing and it should regulate itself. That's what I think. And it's always better to have people coming to a city and apartments that are off the market and used than having empty spaces and no people in a city. That's why I cannot really understand why it shouldn't continue like this. And it's growing, it's going extremely well. It's growing very fast. Airbnb, I believe, doubled last year in capacity. We are more like a bit of a higher price version because we're having top locations only. That's our specialty, that's our field. What we do is we also work with a technology to upgrade the places. We use a modular self-developed technology. So we kind of build a 3D model of the whole apartment that we're gonna use. We use VR goggles to show it to people how it will look like. You can walk around in it. That's one trend that we see often when it comes to building those places. But probably the biggest trend and the biggest opportunity that we use is the fact that the luxury segment of real estate, prime real estate, is decreasing actually, and it is struggling. So properties that have expensive apartments, they have it rather difficult to find a long-term tenant. That's where we come in. Yeah. We can negotiate quite well. We have a lot of requests to take apartments. In the beginning, it was the other way around. It was difficult to get one, but now we have people calling us, do you want to have our apartment? Do you want to rent it? Do you want to make a Lebijou out of it? And that's very good. And it's simply because the prices are dropping. People cannot afford to spend so much on rent. And that's the biggest change that we currently see. That there's something going on in economy. Companies are not willing to pay, such big amounts.
But the fact that these apartments never go out of style is what we benefit from.
Right, absolutely.
Prices go down and we can sort of come in at any price to negotiate over a long-term lease.
Well, guys, I love the energy you bring to the table. I think power entrepreneur couple over here. I would love to speak longer, but time is expensive here, and the audience usually doesn't have the patience to wait for so long. So thank you very much for everyone who tuned in. Thank you very much for taking the time, and I'll see you very soon with a new episode of the Startup Show. Have a good day.